Welcome to the Yahweh and Yahshua Speak Show. We are glad that you have tuned in, Mishpokah, family of Yahweh. This is a Hebrew husband and wife ministry, and we will be on a sermon entitled, Are You Graduating from Called to Chosen to Faithful? Let's start out in Isaiah the 45th chapter. Are you graduating from called to chosen to faithful? Going to Isaiah 45. Isaiah chapter 45, and we want to read verses 22 to 23. Isaiah chapter 45, and let's read verses 22 to 23, please.
Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 22. Look unto me, and be ye saved, all the ends of the earth, for I am Elohim, and there is none else. Verse 23, I have sworn by myself, the word is gone out of my mouth in righteousness, and shall not return, that unto me every knee shall bow, every tongue shall swear.
All right, bless the mighty Yah for his word. So Yahweh is producing, manufacturing, and distributing a product in the earth. And that product is his word. He says, look unto me, and be ye saved, all the ends of the earth, for I am Elohim, and there is none else. So he's selling a product, and he wants you to buy it. He says, I've sworn by myself, my word, the word, is gone out of my mouth in righteousness, and shall not return, that unto me every knee shall bow, and every tongue shall swear. We're in Isaiah, let's go to the 55th chapter. So the road to the kingdom is one of stewardship. And he is producing and manufacturing and distributing a product. And that product is his word. And he has hired some employees to work in his factory. And he calls them stewards. Isaiah the 55th chapter. I want to read verses 10 to 11. Isaiah chapter 55. He said, I've sworn by myself now, my debar, my word is going out of my mouth in righteousness. It shall not return. So this is what he's producing, manufacturing, and distributing in the earth. Isaiah 55 verses 10 to 11. Let's read it, please.
Isaiah chapter 55 and verse 10. For as the rain cometh down, and the snow from heaven, and returneth not thither, but watereth the earth, and maketh it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater. Verse 11, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it.
Now he's talking about his product that he's manufacturing and distributing again. He compares it to the rain. As the rain comes down in the snow from heaven, there's snow up on the mountaintops, but the temperature gets high enough, then the snow comes down like water, like rain. It says, and returneth not thither. It doesn't go back up to the mountain, it comes down. It says, and it waters the earth, and makes it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater. Well, in another place, this distributor Yahweh, he calls his word seed. And he calls it bread. He said, so shall my debar, my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void. He said, I got a good product, I'm distributing it, I'm manufacturing it, I'm producing it, and it's not going to come back void. It's going to go out and multiply and do what it's supposed to do. But it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. Let's go to Matthew, the 4th chapter. Matthew or Matthew, the 4th chapter.
Praise mighty God.
read one verse. Matthew chapter 4 and verse 4.
Hallelujah.
Matthew chapter 4 and verse 4. And it reads.
Matthew chapter 4 and verse 4. But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of Elohim.
All right, so now here is Yahweh's top employee. And he's saying to somebody that's coming against this product that he's manufacturing and distributing in the earth, he answered and told this person, it is written, man, Adam shall not kayar live by lechem or bread alone, but by every thing that Yahweh is producing, manufacturing, and distributing that product, by every word that proceedeth out of his mouth. So the road to the kingdom is one of stewardship.
Yeah.
And you are on stewardship probation training when you begin with him on the road to and before you enter the kingdom. We're in we're in the book of Matthew. Let's go to the 25th chapter. The road to the kingdom is one of stewardship, and you are on stewardship probation training.
Yeah.
On the road to and before you get to the kingdom. Matthew 25. Because you have to get off probation in order to make it to the kingdom. Matthew 25. We're going to read verses 19 to 23. Matthew chapter 25. And let's read verses 19 to 23, please.
Praise Him.
Matthew chapter 25 and verse 19. After a long time, the master of those servants cometh and reckoned with them.
All right, praise the mighty Yah. So now here's a parable, but this parable is actually talking about Yahweh, the owner of this factory, the one that's producing, manufacturing, and distributing his product in the earth, which is his word.
Yeah, yeah.
It says, after a long time, then Ha'adon of those Zebet, those employees, those servants, you
Yep.
and I, he comes and he reckons with you and I.
Yeah.
So you're on this stewardship probation training now, but there's going to come a point where he's going to reckon, and you understand in the secular world, when you interview and then you get hired to a new job, they put you on what's called a probation period. And that's not something they made up. They got that from Yahweh.
Right.
But it says, so after a long time, here the master of those servants, of those employees that are in his factory, he comes and he reckons with them. In other words, in the secular world, you're on the probation period, 30 days, 90 days, whatever it is, and then at the end of that period, then your employer comes to you and he reckons with you. And then you both discuss, okay, did you pass the probation period? Did you meet the requirements to get the job permanently?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so this is where they got it from. All right, verse 20.
Verse 20. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Master, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. Verse 21. His master said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy master.
All right, praise the mighty Yah. So now here's one employee that was part of the ones that were distributing this product, the word in the earth. He says this one received 5 talents. And then when his employer came to, and really this is talking about Yahweh, came to reckon with him to review how he did,
Right.
he said, okay, you gave me 5 talents, here's 5 more. I put those talents to use.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it says, his Adon, verse 21, said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant, or thou good and faithful steward, thou good and faithful employee. You've been faithful over a few things. I only gave you 5 talents, but you got 5 more. He said, so yeah, you passed the probation period. You were a good steward.
Yeah.
You're a good employee. He said, I'm gonna make you rule over many things. Well, you did that good, so I'm gonna expand your responsibility. I'm gonna promote you. He said, so enter into the joy of your master. I'm very pleased with your job performance. All right, verse 22.
Verse 22, he also that had received 2 talents came and said, Master, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents besides them. Verse 23, his master said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy master.
All right, so now here's another employee. Here's another steward. Here's another worker in this factory distributing the word in the earth. And it says he only had 2 talents, so he didn't have as many talents as the other one, but he still put forth the same amount of effort. It says he received 2 talents, and he said, hey, master, you gave me 2, I've gained 2 more. With the 2 you gave me, then his Adon said unto him, well done, thou good and faithful steward. You good and faithful employee. You've been faithful over a few things, so he got the same reward as the one that had 5. Even though the one that had 5 did more, they still both got the same reward.
Right.
And so he said, hey, enter thou into the joy. You passed the probation period. You did good. Your performance was excellent. Go to Revelation 17 chapter.
Praise the mighty God.
So stewards in training, or employees in training, or those that are in the factory where Yahweh is producing, manufacturing, and distributing his product, which is his word in the earth, they graduate from being called by him to being chosen by him to being faithful to him, to their employer Yahweh. And he pays them by confirming their entrance into the kingdom. Revelation, the 17th chapter. We want to read verse 14. Revelation, chapter 17. And let's read verse 14, please.
Revelation chapter 17 and verse 14. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Adon of Adon, and King of kings. And they that are with him are called chosen and faithful.
All right, so here's these top employees that are a part of his factory. And this is after he's finished selling his product in the earth, his word. He's finished marketing it in the earth. He says, these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb is his top employee, distributing the word, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Adon, Adon, and Melech, Melech, and they that are with him, these employees, they got 3 out of 3. Yahweh called them to work for him. He looked at he put them through their stewardship probation training program. He reviewed their performance. Then he chose them. And then they were faithful to what he chose them to do, that is to distribute his word in the earth. So those that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. It's not the best 2 out of 3, it's 3 out of 3. 1 Corinthians, the 1st chapter. 1 Corinthians, the 1st chapter. So your probationary stewardship training period gives you a chance to prove you are suitable for a position in the kingdom. Yahshua proved himself. You have to prove yourself. So that's what that probationary period is about. 1 Corinthians, the 1st chapter. And as with any employer, Yahweh provides you with training to graduate from being called by him to being chosen by him and being faithful to him. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, we want to read verse 18. So he provides you with training. He doesn't just throw you out there like there may be some secular jobs where they assign somebody to train you and then they you know, may not quite know how to train you or
Yep.
not want to train you or whatever.
Yeah.
So Yahweh is personally responsible for training you. So
Yeah.
you're not left to your own. He provides you with excellent training.
Yes.
So you can graduate from being called by Him to being chosen by Him
Yeah.
and being faithful to Him. 1 Corinthians, so he does 2 of them and you only do 1, but really you have to cooperate after He calls you during your stewardship probationary training period,
Right.
because after He reviews you, when your probationary training period is over, your performance has to match up to the training that He's given you. And none of us can fake Yahweh out and act like He didn't train us.
Right.
1 Corinthians 1, and let's read verse 18, please.
Right on.
1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 18. For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved it is the power of God.
All right, so when you go to talking about a stewardship probationary training period, when it comes to the scriptures and when it comes to doing something that has a moral attachment to it,
Yeah.
then this is the preaching of the cross. But it says, it is to them that perish foolishness.
Uh-huh.
So your probation based on stewardship can be seen as foolishness, meaning acting without good sense and not having judgment. It can be looked at as not having common sense. It says, but
Right.
unto the employees which are saved, it is the power, the mashal of Elohim. Go to Luke, the 16th chapter.
Yep.
So how is your probation stewardship training going? How's it going? Is it being looked at as something without common sense? Luke 16.
Yep.
It says if it is, then you're joining the wrong group. To us, the employees working, and we're not taking 5 minutes longer when we take lunch. We're not taking longer. We don't smoke, but we're not taking a longer cigarette break. We're not taking more cigarette breaks than we're entitled to. How is your probation stewardship training going? Luke 16 and verse 10.
Hallelujah.
Luke chapter 16 and verse 10. He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much, and he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much.
All right? So if you're faithful in a little thing, then Yahweh puts you on this probation and He's evaluating you.
Yeah.
So if He gives you a little job to do, it says He knows from His word, see, because his product is His word.
Yeah.
So here's His word saying that if you're faithful in a little bit, then He can give you more because He knows you'll take care of that too.
Hallelujah.
But He said that if you're unjust or you're not faithful in a little bit, He says there's no point in me giving you more. So He puts you on probation to evaluate you. Go back to Matthew 25th chapter. He puts you on probation to evaluate you, and He gives you a certain amount of time to get your job done.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Matthew 25.
Yep.
And if you are unfaithful, your probation stewardship training will not make sense to you.
No.
So you say that doesn't make any common sense. Well, what is that about?
I know, right?
But you go on a secular job, and if they tell you, look, you got 30 days, or you got 60 days, or you have 90 days, then we're going to review your performance.
Right.
then all of a sudden it's crystal clear. Oh, you understand that, but when it comes to this standard of excellence, where they got it from,
I know, right?
then
Tell like it is,
it
Ron.
seems
Tell
like
your daddy told
it
you
doesn't
to.
make any sense to you.
I know, right?
But he just said in the scripture, because you may not have been faithful in a little bit. Then that's why it doesn't make sense to you.
Right.
If you've learned to handle a little bit, then in this secular world, they gave you some more to do. And then when they were right, they increased your pay. Matthew 25, let's read verses 24 to 25, please.
Hallelujah.
Matthew chapter 25 and verse 24. Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, Master, I knew thee that thou art an hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. Verse 25. And I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast that is thine.
All right, so now this parable is talking about 3 employees that were on doing this probation stewardship training. Well, we saw the evaluation performance of 2 of them. One had 5 talents,
Right.
and he said, hey, during this, however long that probation period was, I doubled that,
Right.
and from the training you gave me, so I gave you back 5 more, so now you got 10. And we saw another employee, he had 2 talents, and he said, from your training I took, I doubled that, so now you got 4 talents. And then he said, I'm very pleased with you all. Yeah, you passed the stewardship probation period with
Right.
flying colors. Well, now here comes this 3rd person. He's getting the same training,
Right.
but all of a sudden now, and he got the least of all. He only had 1 job,
Right.
or one assignment. So first thing he started talking about when he during his evaluation, after his probation is over, after he received his training, he's saying he starts talking about the employer.
Right.
He starts downgrading the employer. He starts talking about how the training wasn't this and the training wasn't that. He said, I knew, see, let me tell you about yourself,
Right.
Yahweh. Let me tell you about, how you do and how this is not right, how you doing it.
Right.
He said, I don't. I knew thee that you are a hard man, reaping where you didn't sow, gathering where you have not strawed. So now he's talking about how unreasonable the quota is that the employer gave him, and about how wrong the employer is. Or you have some people in the secular world talk about how, well, I give them 20 hours, no, I give them 30 hours work, even though I'm supposed to work 40 hours because they only paying me for 30. So this is that type of mindset. But you see, he's coming against the employer to make an excuse for himself what he didn't do. He said, cause you so rough and you so hard, and then your training was so inadequate, you made me afraid of you. Verse 25. I was afraid.
Right.
And went and hid your talent in the earth, and here I'm giving you back what you gave me. So go to Genesis, the 3rd chapter. So if you are unfaithful, that probation stewardship training will not make sense to you, and you will blame your employer for not being faithful to graduate from being called to chosen.
Right.
You will look to blame your employer or anybody else but yourself
Right.
for why you didn't pass the probation period. So the parable was in the New Testament. Now we're going to look at, this is the first man that tried that blaming the employer
Right.
when he didn't pass his first stewardship probation training.
Right.
Genesis, the 3rd chapter, and we want to read verse 12. Genesis chapter 3 and verse 12.
Genesis chapter 3 and verse 12. And the man said, the woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat.
All right, so we just read about this employee that had the 1 talent, and he's blaming the employer and talking about the employer was he's hard and he's reaping where he didn't sow and he's gathering where he didn't, straw. Well, here we see in Genesis, this is the first one that tried that.
Right.
To cop that plea. And the man said, hey, number one, the woman, but really, you, employer, it's your fault, but see, you gave her to me.
Right.
Said, so it really, let's just lay it out here like it is.
Right.
It's your fault, Yahweh.
Right.
It's your fault, employer. And then number 1, you shouldn't have me on no stewardship training program, probation, no way. That's what every human being will tell you.
Right.
That's unfaithful. Go to Proverbs 25th chapter. So you can blame your employer, Yahweh, and still get fired.
Right. Praise.
If you've been in the secular world long enough, and because people have been so ill-equipped and not been put on probation and not been trained, and they come up with some real creative excuses.
I know, right?
And they have some really sad expectations. And there are some that actually expect to go to the secular job and not work and get paid.
Right.
And then wonder why they got fired.
Right.
But that's just a sad consequence on what has been happening at their home or what has been allowed to influence them.
Right.
But it gets to a certain point where when you get to be a certain age, you cannot keep blaming it on your home anymore.
Right.
You can, but it's a reflection on you regardless of what your parents did to you.
Right.
All right, so the first man tried the same thing, to blame it on his employer, Yahweh. But you can blame your not using your stewardship probation training period of time right, and you can still get fired. Proverbs 25 and verse 19.
Hallelujah.
Proverbs chapter 25 and verse 19. Confidence in an unfaithful man in time of trouble is like a broken tooth and a foot out of joint.
All right, so you're just saying that's what the problem is, unfaithfulness. And that's what the stewardship probation training period is for, to get that unfaithfulness out of you and me.
Right.
It says confidence in an unfaithful man in time of trouble, to distribute and produce this product that he's distributing and producing in the earth.
Right.
Putting that in that man's hand, he says it's like a broken tooth. So you know if your tooth is broken or chipped or whatever, it's like you'll be looking to call the dentist and go get it fixed. He said, or a foot out of joint. So if you did something to your foot and your foot is not quite right, and then you got to walk somewhere, it's like, so you understand that it's an inconvenience, it's a hindrance.
Right.
So that's what the probation period is for. He's giving you a chance to prove to him you're suitable for a position in the kingdom. Matthew 25 again. So we see, okay, we saw this parable, and this man that had 1 talent, he gave an excuse. Well, then we went back to Genesis to see the first man that had given the excuse. Well, It didn't fly then.
Right.
So of course now we way over here in the New Testament. Well, it's not gonna fly then. Well,
Yeah.
and so now we're past the New Testament. It's not gonna fly today either.
Never.
Never. Like my brother just said, it's never gonna fly.
Yeah.
Matthew 25. We want to read verses 26 to 30. So now,
Yeah.
if you've read the Bible any length of time, you understand what Yahweh told the first man
Right.
after he went to blaming him and his wife.
Right.
You see, he still got fired. He got put out of the Garden of Eden.
Right.
All right, but he got himself together, and he did eventually, get his stewardship
Yeah, he did.
badge. So he got it. So it's never too late. As long
Never.
as there's life, there's hope.
Yes, it is.
Matthew 25 verses 26 to 30. Now we're gonna
Right
look
now.
and see what this employer, because this employer really represents Yahweh.
Uh-huh.
What did he tell this man? Who talking about how hard he was, and so he was afraid of him. So then he didn't do what he was supposed to do on probation.
Right.
All right, 25 verses 26 to 30, please.
Praise God.
Matthew chapter 25 and verse 26. His master answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sow not, and gather where I have not straw. Verse 27. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchanger, and then at my coming I should have received my own with usury.
All right, so now here is the employer, and he's telling him, so you're going to tell me, because you knew it was a sure thing if you had just done something with the training that I would do. You knew it was a sure thing that you were going to get a return back on that one talent.
Right.
You gonna come try to psych me out, act like that was a negative? He said, his master answered him, you wicked and lazy servant.
I know, right?
You knew that I got it going on. You knew that I'm giving you this excellent training. You knew that I'm spending this time with you. You knew
Right.
the product I have is superior.
That is right.
You
Your
knew
daddy
you
told
had
you.
everything going in your favor. All
Right.
you had to do was do this little part.
Right.
You knew all that. So before he said all that, he said, you wicked and lazy.
I know,
He
right?
said, that's what it was. You're unfaithful and you lazy.
Right.
You knew about me. So you trying to tell me, because I had it going on, that was going to hinder you and you became afraid of me? He said, I'm not going for that.
Right.
You better go psych your own self out. He said, therefore you should have put my money to the exchangers, and then when your probation period was over, you could have gave me back one more.
Right.
He said, don't be blaming me, and then you gonna tell me how you knew I had it going on? You knew the training was excellent.
Right.
Then you gonna come back and try to tell me about why you didn't. He said, I'm telling you to your face.
Right.
You're lazy, and you're wicked, and you're unfaithful.
Right.
All right, verse 28.
Verse 28. Take therefore the talents from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. Verse 29. For unto everyone that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. Verse 30. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
So he said, hey, I gave you one talent. He said, give it to the one that had 10. He said, because to everyone that has shall be given.
Yeah.
So he's saying, you got a sure thing going on here. This product I'm giving you, the word that I'm distributing and manufacturing, this is a sure thing.
Yes, it is.
Now, if you don't put it out there, don't come back trying to blame Yahweh and talk about how it ain't working or how I was scared to do this or do that. He's not buying it. He said, and you still gonna get fired. He said, cast the unprofitable servant into outer darkness.
Right.
There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Go to Luke, the 16th chapter. So there is a parable about a steward who, after his probation training period ended, he was reviewed for his performance, and he was gonna be fired. Luke 16. So we saw this one, he got fired. So now here's another parable, and there's some jobs that have what you call getting written up or whatever.
Yeah.
They do certain things before they try to be fair about it and give you warning to try to help you evaluate your performance during this probation period.
Right.
And so here is this man, and this is kind of like a write-up, but now his probation training period was over. His employer was reviewing his performance, and he let him know, look, I'm gonna fire you. Luke 16, let's read verses 1 to 4, please.
Hallelujah.
Luke chapter 16 and verse 1. And he said unto his disciples, there was a certain rich man which had a steward, and the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods.
Okay, so now he got his write-up. We don't know how many write-ups he got. We don't know how many warnings he got. But he knew during his probation period, he wasn't doing his job.
Right.
He said also unto his disciples, this is Yahshua, and he's teaching this stewardship.
Right.
He's teaching this training.
Right.
He's letting them know they're on probation. He said there was a certain man that had a steward, and that steward was accused. The man told him, you wasting my goods. I'm paying you for nothing.
Right.
All right, so that was like him getting a warning.
Uh-huh.
All right, verse 2.
Verse 2, and he called him and said unto him, how is it that I hear this of thee? Give an account of thy stewardship, for thou mayest be no longer steward.
So then there are other people that knew that he wasn't doing it, wasn't doing his job. And so here's the owner, and he's saying, and now this is the same as Yahweh having that factory,
Yeah.
putting out the word, and this person's working for him too. So it really relates to him too. He called this steward, and he said, what am I getting these reports about how you're not doing your job? He said, okay, give an account of your stewardship. You're on probation now.
Right.
What you doing? What am I paying you for? He said, because I'm going to fire you that you may be no longer a steward unless you come up with some real good something to turn this thing around. So he's giving them a chance, like some secular jobs do.
Right.
Verse 3.
Verse 3, then the steward said within himself, what shall I do? For my master taketh away from me the stewardship. I cannot dig. To beg I am ashamed. Verse 4, I am resolved what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses.
All right, so he had nothing going for him, just lazy all the way around and at work and not doing his job. He's saying, he said to himself, whoa, this thing is known. I'm confronted now. I got to come up with some answers. I know I've been jacking around. I know I've been lazy. I know I haven't been doing my job. But some kind of way he was expecting just to get away with it. No, there's always a day of reckoning.
Right.
And it's better for the stewards to reckon themselves and catch themselves than to be caught by the employer or somebody else and then be reckoned.
Right.
But the word got back to this man, to the owner, and the steward said, okay, he's talking to himself right now. He said, okay, what can I do?
Right.
He said, I don't have skills to do this. I don't want to go out and beg. I'm ashamed to do that. He said, you know what? I got to do something I got to stand up and do something
Right.
in order to pass this probation to get back in good graces. They call it fruits of repentance.
Right.
He said that when I'm put out of my stewardship, he said, well, I better go talk to some people. I need to
Right.
stay at their house.
Right.
I mean, wherever he's saying wherever I'm living, that's not paid up either. So he was just messing up all the way around. So are you graduating from being called to being chosen on probation? Depends on what you're doing.
Right.
This steward agreed with his employer, so he did do that right, that he had quote unquote fired himself.
Right.
Now there are people that get fired wrongfully in the secular world,
Right.
but Yahweh never fires anybody wrongfully.
Nope.
So at least he was man enough to stand up and say, you know what, I fired myself.
Right.
I messed up. It's my fault. He accepted his employer's evaluation of his performance and he did better. So let's read verses 5 to 7. So he accepted it, and his employer could tell he accepted it because he turned it around.
Right.
He did what he's supposed to be doing at first.
Right.
But it speaks well of you and I when we do at the first what we're supposed to do. It shouldn't take this extra pressure coming down on you and I to make us do the right thing by our employer.
Right.
It shouldn't, but sometimes it does.
Right.
All right, verses 5 to 7, please.
Hallelujah.
Verse 5, so he called every one of his master's debtors unto him, and said unto the first, how much owest thou unto my master? Verse 6, and he said, 100 measures of oil. And he said unto him, take thy bill, and sit down quickly, and write 50.
5 to 7.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Verse 7. Then said he to another, how much owest thou? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said unto him, take thy bill and write 80.
See, so now he knew what to do.
Right.
So there was nothing wrong with the employer's training. There's nothing wrong with the stewardship program. He immediately had all the information he needed.
Right.
He said he called every one of them.
Right.
He didn't have to go look, okay, so who owes what? He was on top of that. He just was dropping the ball.
Right.
And he thought that was gonna fly. And he said, okay, how much do you owe? So he started, making deals so his master could get some money in. He started doing what he was supposed to do.
Right.
But he would have been able to get 100%
Right.
if he had done it timely as his master trained him and showed him how to do. So when you get written up for the first time, what do? During your probation training period, as Yahweh teaches you the principles of stewardship, are you becoming more disciplined?
Right.
Let's go to Luke 19. Because if you're not, you're going to get caught behind the 8 ball, just like this man.
Right.
But for Yahweh showing you he's merciful, this man would have got fired.
Yeah.
But we're going to see that Yahweh touched his employer's heart, but really that's Yahweh it represents Yahweh.
Right. Right.
Luke 19, 16 to 17, please.
Hallelujah.
Luke chapter 19 and verse 16. Then came the first, saying, Master, thy pound has gained 10 pounds. Verse 17, and he said unto him, well, thou good servant, because thou hast been faithful in a very little, have thou authority over 10 cities.
All right, so here we're just looking at another account of that parable in Matthew, where he gave one person 10 things to do.
Right.
And then he increased it, and he gave him 5, and then he increased it to 5 more. And he's saying, okay, you've been faithful. You used the training that I gave you. And he said, over little, so I'm going to give you authority over a lot, over
Yeah,
10
yeah.
cities.
Right.
Go to Job 36 chapter. So your employer, Yahweh, is not punishing you by putting you on probation stewardship training
Right.
until you become a good steward. That is not punishment.
I know, right?
Job the 36th chapter. He is training you to steward or discipline yourself
Yep.
first for kingdom life.
That's it.
Job 36. You're not being punished. I'm going to read verses 9 to 12. Job chapter
Hallelujah.
36 and verses 9 to 12.
Job chapter 36, verse 9. Then he showeth them their work and their transgressions that they have exceeded. Verse 10. He opened also their ear to discipline and commanded that they return from iniquity. Verse 11. If they obey and serve him, they shall spend their days in prosperity and their years in pleasure.
Hallelujah.
Verse 12. But if they obey not, they shall perish by the sword, and they shall die without knowledge.
All right, so we're just looking at the state of this steward, to where his master said, you know, look, you wasted my goods. What are you doing? And then he realized, oh, wait a minute now. I don't have no house. I don't have no car. I gotta go talk to some people so I can stay at their house. I don't want to beg. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. So here Job is saying, then he showed them their work. This is talking about this employee review. After the probationary period is over. He showed them their works and their transgressions. You said he opened their ears to discipline and commanded that they return from iniquity.
Right.
So iniquity is equated with laziness. It's equated with lack of discipline.
Yep.
It's equated with not stewarding or having control and keeping in order what he has entrusted to you.
Right.
That's equated with iniquity
Right.
and laziness. He said if they obey and serve him, respond to this probation period that you're on,
Right.
and make sure you graduate out of probation to being chosen. He said, they shall spend their lives in prosperity and their years in pleasures.
Yep.
An undisciplined life is not a life of pleasure.
I know,
It's
right?
a life of chaos.
I know, right?
He said, but if they don't obey, he said they're going to perish by the sword. And they'll die without knowledge.
Right. Yep.
Go to 1 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter.
Hallelujah.
So during your probation stewardship training period, you show your employer Yahweh you are proactive to your first responsibility. That is to steward and discipline yourself.
That's it.
That's your first responsibility. Because if you fail at that one, you're not going to steward, you're not going to take care of anything else that he assigned you to do.
You can't.
1 Thessalonians 4th chapter. Absolutely, my brother. Yes, my brother. You can't. It starts first at home,
Yep.
and that is your body.
Yourself.
1 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter. And let's see, verse 4. 1 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter. So your probation stewardship training period shows your employer Yahweh you are proactive to take care of your first responsibility. That is to steward or discipline yourself.
That's it.
1 Thessalonians 2 and 4.
Hallelujah.
1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 4. But as we were allowed of Elohim to be put in trust with the doctrine, even so we speak, not as pleasing men, but Elohim, which trieth our hearts.
Yeah.
All right, say we realize we're working in this factory.
Right.
We understand what Yahweh is producing and manufacturing and marketing in the earth. His word. It says, but as we were allowed of Elohim
Uh-huh.
to work for him, to be put in trust with the words,
Yeah.
with his product, even so we speak, not as pleasing men,
No.
but the one who's paying us.
Right.
We passed the probation period
You're right.
to him choosing us to being faithful
Yeah.
with working this job.
Yes.
He said, not pleasing men, but as Elohim who tries the hearts.
Right.
Go to Genesis, the 2nd chapter. So Yahweh put the first man and woman on his stewardship training program, on probation, stewardship training probation, with the commandment to steward themselves by controlling what they ate.
Right.
Genesis, the 2nd chapter. So the stewardship responsibility number 1 is to train yourself. And there are some people on probation and they had to start at square one to where they're so undisciplined and unstewarded about time, they can't even show up on time.
I know, right?
I mean, it's very sad. You wonder what in the world their parents were doing. And they think, well, all right, I start at 8 o'clock, but if I show at 8:05,
Yeah.
I remember I was working at Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's College of Medicine. And there was a young lady, and she, Shemite, and so came in the first day and started at 8 o'clock. She showed up at 8:05. So her boss sat her down and said, the work hours are 8 to 4:30. I expect you here either before 8, you won't start to work till 8, but 8 o'clock. Next day, she came in at 8:05. So her boss told her one more, he said, okay, you got one more time. I'm telling you, work hours are 8 o'clock. So a couple of days she came at 8, and then the 5th day, 8:05. And so she said, I'm sorry, I can't use you.
Right.
But it was just her training. She's kind of thinking, well, it's close enough.
Right.
But so that hopefully that was her learning experience.
Yeah.
In the secular world will help you, but really that's just life experience.
Right.
And when you're talking about time, really if you look at it, when you're supposed to be somewhere, getting there early is really getting there on time when you have been through this probation stewardship training program. So you don't just get there on the dot.
Right.
You've been trained to get there earlier, so then you be relaxed and you just be waiting for people to come. But that's that stewardship training program, probation mind that Yahweh gives you.
Yeah.
If you didn't get it in the secular world from your family.
Right. Hallelujah.
Okay, Genesis, the 2nd chapter. We want to read verses 8 to 9. So Yahweh put the first man and woman on his stewardship training probation with the commandment to steward themselves by controlling what they ate. Genesis 2, 8 to 9.
Genesis chapter 2 and verse 8. And Yahweh Elohim planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. Verse 9, and out of the ground made Yahweh Elohim to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
All right, so you see it says Yahweh, he planted a garden. He put the man, and he said, and there was every tree that's pleasant to the sight and good for food. And then he mentions 2 trees. There was a tree of life and a tree of knowledge of good and evil. Go to John, the 4th chapter. So the stewardship probation training period addresses whether you have food in its proper place. John, the 4th chapter. Because some people have been taught that food is to be, okay, if you feel bad, you're supposed to eat food. If you don't have anything to do, you're supposed to eat food.
Yeah.
You know, if you're bored, you're supposed to eat food. Or if you feel like things are out of control, then you're supposed to not eat food. They call it anorexia, to where you're trying to get some kind of, people are trying to get some kind of control inward. John the 4th chapter, let's read verses 31 to 34.
Yeah.
31 to 34.
Praise him.
John chapter 4 and verse 31. In the meanwhile, his disciples prayed him, saying, Master, eat. Verse 32, but he said unto them, I have meat to eat that ye know not of. Verse 33, therefore said the disciples one to another, hath any man brought him aught to eat? Verse 34, and Yahshua said unto them, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to finish his work.
All right, so we see that's why in Genesis, we just looked at those trees that are in the midst of the garden. But it was the first man and woman, it was part of this stewardship training probation. And it's part of our stewardship training probation too. So here's Yahshua, and his disciples are saying, oh, okay, come on, Adon, you need to eat something.
Right.
And then Yahshua said, I got meat that you don't know of.
Right.
He said, I'm full. What he was talking about was talking about Yahweh's word.
That's it.
That product that he is marketing and he has us distributing. And then his disciples saying, okay, he's saying he ate some meat. He said, hey, did you bring in something to eat? Then Yahshua said, look, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me and to finish his work.
Right.
He said, I don't have natural food out of order.
Right.
And you can see a lot of people have natural food out of order because they're walking down the street looking like a blimp.
Yeah.
Go back to Genesis, the 2nd chapter. So you notice in the verse that we read in Genesis that the tree of life was in the garden and it was right there. Genesis chapter 2. We saw 2 trees, but the tree of life was right there. Genesis chapter 2, let's read verse 16.
Genesis chapter 2 and verse 16.